How's it going? Back at it with the box of coloured rares that also includes artifacts and lands. So we'll see what we get. It was a pretty interesting spread last time. Some more modern cards from Shadows over Innistrad, Eldritch Moon. We had some rares from Visions. Juju Bubble. That's what I ended things on. But things like Workhorse as well. It's just such an interesting juxtaposition. The cards that were exciting when we were younger, or just rares, right? Usually more complicated, more niche cards that ultimately aren't good enough. So I think this sounds really nice. I might just have to do a video with that, to be honest. Anyway, so I'm going to pull out a little brick, and hopefully I do have some, like a little folder with, or a binder with some better rares in it, but I think this is more fun, right? Because, you know, it's a Force of Will, it's a Sensei's Divining Top, it's just not, I quite like these more random rares that we can kind of talk through and explore together. Looks like I've got some red cards, some black cards, a bunch of gold cards. You've got a nice little mix here of cards. I'll just go through, I'll pull out some cards that hopefully you find interesting. Go from there. So we've got a mythic rare, a foil mythic, the Dream. I would have pulled this from a pack. Don't think it's worth anything. 2 red for the Akoum Firebird. It's a 3/3 flying with haste. It attacks each turn if able, and it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 6 mana for red. If you do, return it from the graveyard to your battlefield. It's pretty good, it's not that exciting. It's quite expensive. I can hear a cat moving around out there. It's pretty late here. It's like 1 AM, so it's always a little bit sketchy when you start hearing movement. 2 and a red for Radiant Flames. Radiant Flames deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of colours of mana spent to cast Radiant Flames. Now, I really like this card, so it can never be more than 3. Never more than 3. But you could work it to your advantage if the opponent was, coming in up with some 1/1s, some 2/2s. You could just pay maybe red and blue and get them all for 2. Then if your creatures are 3 toughness or greater, they survive. Reading it back, I don't know, maybe I have 4 of them all sleeved up, so I guess I had a standard deck with them in. They must have made sense from a meta perspective, but yeah. Again, the issue with a card like that is they play a 4/4, and these are never touching it. Okay, I've never seen this card before. I have 2 copies of it. 4 black. Undercity Plague. This is from Ravnica. That's not the original Ravnica set, that's Return to Ravnica, or one of the expansions based on it. Target player loses 1 life. discards a card, then sacrifices a permanent. Now that is not great for 6 mana, but it has Cipher. Then you may exile this spell card encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. So, 6 mana, you get the effect target player loses 1 life, discards a card and sacrifices a creature. But then you exile it under one of your creatures, and whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, you get this effect again. And then the next turn, if they hit, you get it again. So your idea would be to play it, get the effect, put it on a creature with evasion, maybe flying, that's definitely going to hit them this turn, so they get the effect again, and then again, and then again. Still not very good, but hey, Cypher's kind of cool. So, this card, I wasn't playing when it came out, but if this card had been around when I was 13 or 14, I would have loved it. Sorin's Vengeance, 4 black, 7 mana for a sorcery. It deals 10 damage to target player, and you gain 10 life. That is a lot of damage, that is a lot of life gain. 7 mana is a lot, but suddenly they started the game with 10 life. You just got to get them to 10, and anytime Sorin's Vengeance could take them out. I would absolutely take that in draft every time, and it would be stuck in my hand. So we got 4 copies of Phylactery Lich. This card's pretty cool. Black for a 5/5, strong. As Phylactery Lich enters the battlefield, put a Phylactery counter on an artifact you control. Phylactery Lich is indestructible. When you control no permanents with Phylactery counters on them, you sacrifice the Lich. So, I have 4 of these as well. No idea why, how, or where from. So, when you cast the Lich, you must have an artifact in play, which does somewhat limit you. And if that artifact is destroyed, or leaves the battlefield, the Lich goes with it. Now, as long as you can run out an artifact on turn 1 or 2, that's going to be pretty strong, because not every deck runs artifact removal. Everyone's going to be running creature removal, but perhaps you've got a 3 mana 5/5 indestructible attached to an artifact that they can't get rid of. I like that card. It's pretty boring. How about an old school dragon from Invasion? Something like that. 3 and bant. 3 and bant. 3 green, white and blue. Gets you Trevor, the Renewer. They already called a dragon Trevor. That's kind of whack, but I don't know. Treva. Maybe that's better than Trevor. 6/6 flyer for 6 mana. And whenever Treva, the Renewer, deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 and a white. If you do choose a colour, you gain 1 life for each permanent of that colour. So that's going to guarantee you 3 life if you pay your 3. But if you do have a black and a red permanent as well, you could gain up to 5. That would have been part of the cycle, and I suspect all the other ones would have been more powerful, because gaining 3 life for 3 mana isn't really worth it, and you got to deal combat damage as well. But it's a 6/6 flyer for 6, so that's not too bad. Hey, here's a card that I loved. It's an uncommon, but you're going to get to see it anyway. 1 blue and a red. I think it's been outclassed these days by some other cards, but we Dragonauts, the Fairy Wizard. 1 blue and a red for a 1/3 flyer. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Wheat Dragonauts gains +2/+0 to end of turn. So it's a 1/3 flyer for 3. You cast an instant or sorcery spell, it's a 3/3. Another one, 5/3. Another one, 7/3. So you're going to want to put this in a deck with a lot of card draw. You can just churn through cheap spells, recursion, and you could have some turns where you get a couple of these on the battlefield. Attack, if your opponent has to block them or they're dead. I love that card. Okay, we've got a cool one here. Is it good? We'll find out together. The card is Last Stand. Last Stand from maybe Apocalypse. It's 1 mana of every colour. It's Wooburg. White, blue, red, black, green. Oh man, that must have been really frustrating because I got those out of order. White, blue, black, red, green, Wooburg. I'm going to have to read this face on. The arts are old school. It's Ron Spencer at it again. I love that. Okay, there's a lot of text on this one. It's a sorcery. Target opponent loses 2 life for each swamp you control. Okay. Last Stand deals damage equal to the number of mountains you control to target creature. Put a 1/1 green sapling creature token into play for each forest you control. You gain 2 life for each plains you control, always with a life. Draw a card for each island you control, then discard that many cards from your hand. Okay, so that card is very cool. I don't think it's that good because, I mean, at the bare minimum it's going to be, assuming you've paid it all from all the mana from lands, and more specifically basic lands or maybe shock lands. It's going to be 5 mana, 2 damage to an opponent, 1 damage to a creature, make a 1/1, gain 2 life, draw a card, discard a card. That's quite a lot of little effects. And of course you could have some extra lands as well, but it wants you to kind of go deep. You had 5 swamps, that's 10 damage. 5 mountains, that's 5 damage to a creature. But in what deck do you have 5 forests and also the ability to create all of that mana and get those effects as well? Cool card though, it's cool. This is Wart the Raid Mother from some kind of Masters set from Modern Masters 3, which might have been the Modern Masters I played in Limited. 4 red and a green, so Gruul hybrid, 6 mana in total, gets you a 3/3. When Wart the Raid Mother enters the battlefield, create 2/2/2 1/1 goblin creature tokens. Each red or green instant or sorcery spell you cast has Conspire. As you cast a spell, you may tap 2 untapped creatures, which he just gave you, that share a colour with it. When you do, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. That's really good, actually. That's really, really good. It's quite expensive. 6 mana for a 3/3. It does leave behind 2 1/1s, but obviously you're asking to get eaten up by a much cheaper removal spell. But hey, you can stick it and then start casting red and green instants and sorceries. You've got the 1/1s to tap. Hey, so we had a look at Treeva the Renewer. We've got a more modern dragon here. 5 mana, Dromoka the Eternal. Not the good Dromoka, Dragon Lord Dromoka. But still, 3 green, white for a 5/5 flyer, which you probably prefer to a 6 mana 6/6 flyer, given that you can get it down a turn earlier. Flying, whenever a dragon you control attacks, bolstered 2. Choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 2 2 +1/+1 counters on it. That's strong. That's really strong. And it's whenever a dragon you control, so it doesn't have to be Dromoka. You've got other dragons, send them in, bolstering all over the place. And hey, actually this card, I think I opened this on this channel like 7, 8 years ago. That's kind of cool. And I was really gassed. It would have been 7 years ago because it's 2015 from Fate Reforged. It's 5 red and a green. It's a Targa Wild Render. And when I was opening cards on this channel, I was pretty new to the game, so I think I was really excited by this card that ultimately is it's okay. 7 mana, 6/4 flying trample. Whenever a dragon you control attacks, it gains double strike until end of turn. Now that's certainly not bad. But that 4 toughness really leaves you open to getting sniped by a removal spell for 7 mana. But it does kind of say that if you attack with this card and any other dragons, then you win, because that's coming in as a 12 power creature. A little bit of tapping on a card that isn't actually good enough to talk about. Oh, okay, so this is one of the cool Grecian themed cards from Theros. I mean, obviously they were all very Greek themed, but there's really cool art on Anax and Cymede. This card is a 1 red and a white for a legendary creature, human soldier. It's a 3/2, first strike and vigilance. That is not bad. And it's got heroic. When you cast a spell that targets Anax and Cymede, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. That card seems pretty strong to me. 2 toughness is a little bit ropey in terms of getting sniped by a shock, but that first strike means that in combat that is going to be pretty heavy. And at any point you can get +1/+1 and trample. That's cool. There's some pretty intense art on this one. Let's see if it's any good. It's an enchantment. 2 red, black for the Anthem of Rakdos from one of the original Ravnica sets, I believe. No, yeah, it would have been. Anthem of Rakdos. Whenever a creature is an enchantment, whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and Anthem of Rakdos deals 1 damage to you. As long as you have no cards in hand, Hellbent. If a source you control would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage to that creature or player instead. Hey, that sounds pretty strong to me. As long as you haven't been taken too low. In terms of life, that card could easily finish the game off. And if you can get yourself Hellbent before you attack, GG, my friend. GG. Some pretty boring cards here. Pretty boring cards. Now, a couple of cool ones here that maybe we'll have a look at before we wrap things up. So, what about Shadow Mage Infiltrator? This is a classic card that I think has been somewhat outclassed these days by similar cards. 1 blue black for Wizard, 1/3 can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. And I'm going to kind of go ahead and take back what I just said. Whenever Shadow Mage Infiltrator deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. I was thinking about the cards that have come out quite recently in the more recent sets that do something similar in terms of not being able to be blocked, but you get to loot, draw a card, discard a card. Obviously against the right deck, i.e. one that's not playing artifact or black creatures, this card is going to do a lot of work. Draw a card every turn, dealing 1 damage. That's really cool. We've got another blue-black card here. From what I think is Plane Shift, maybe. 2 blue and a black. For a Spectre. It's a 2/3 flyer. When Doomsday Spectre comes into play, return a blue or black creature you control to its owner's hand. Whenever Doomsday Spectre deals combat damage to a player, look at that player's hand and choose a card from it. That player discards that card. That seems a little bit slow, and having to return your own creature you control. And that's sometimes a benefit, but generally that's a bit of a cost. But hey, if you stick it and you're in a good position, being able to just pinch any card from the player's hand is pretty cool. Okay, we got a couple more. An instant from one of the Ravnica sets. 1 green, white. I mean, this one is from Modern Masters 3, but I'm pretty sure that looks like Ravnica to me. 4 mana. Instant. Create a 5/5 green worm creature token with trample. So it's not a fancy card by any stretch of the imagination, but 4 mana 5/5 that, yes, can be bounced very easily. But against the right deck, you can ambush with this card, take out their 4 powered creature on blocks, and then you've got a 5/5 left over to start wailing in on. That's really strong. I think that's really strong. Simic Sky Swallower from the same set, and again based on Ravnica. This is 5 green and a blue for a 6/6 flying trample with a shroud. So 6/6 flying trample. Shroud is like hexproof on steroids. You can't target it either, so you can't buff this card in any way. You can't point any spells or abilities at it. But it's a 6/6 flying trample that they can't target either, so very strong. Generally playing that card is going to be the end of the game. And I've got a couple of old cards here. Older cards. Maybe we'll end similarly to that Juju bubble with something a little less appealing. That's a great way to end the video. This card, which when I saw this card for a second, then I was like, is that Mana Drain? The art's very similar to the original Mana Drain. I was quite excited. And it does something similar, but a lot less powerful. Mana Drain being blue for a counter spell, counter target spell, and at the start of your next turn, you get mana equal to that card, the card you countered, to convert mana cost into your mana pool. So you counter their 5-drop the next turn in your first pre-combat main phase. You've got 5 mana to spend, which was a punishment back when Mana Drain came out, because if you couldn't spend that mana properly, you'd get mana burned from it. Let's just say you could only spend 2 of that mana. You'd have 3 damage dealt to you by that mana leaving your mana pool. These days it's all upside. It's a better counter spell, and it's an incredibly powerful card that still retains quite a bit of value. Power Sync, on the other hand, is X and a blue for an instant. Counter target spell, unless that spell's caster pays an additional X. That player must draw and pay all available mana from lands and mana pool until X is paid. He or she may also pay mana from another source if desired. So, essentially, it's a counter spell that if you pay 2 and a blue, they must counter target spell unless they pay 2. difference here is that they must pay all their mana to try and pay that. So either you can force them to have to pay it, or potentially pay enough that they have to tap all the rest of their mana, and they still don't manage to actually pay the cost, and the spell gets countered. It's kind of cool. I don't think it's particularly strong, but I think it's pretty cool. Suffocation. This is the kind of old school card I don't think they post anymore. I'm not 100% sure on that. Alliances, maybe? Alliances. One and a blue. Play only when a red sorcery or instant deals damage to you. So you can only play it if a red sorcery or instant has done damage to you. At that moment, when you do that, you can deal 4 damage to that spell's caster, and then you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, so purely for the sideboard. But if you get that off, that's pretty strong. 4 damage, draw a card. But it's situational. If they don't target you and damage you with a red instant or sorcery, it does nothing. Okay, let's choose a final card to finish things on. Maybe something a little more fun. Oh, how about a terrible card and a quick story from Prophecy. Searing Wind is 8 and a red and deals 10 damage to target creature or player. Now, I just said earlier about Sorin's Vengeance, which is 7 mana, deal 10 to target player and gain 10, and how I would have loved that card when I was younger. Well, Searing Wind, 9 mana, and it deals 10 damage to target creature or player. I love this card, and I had a lot of Prophecy cards. In fact, when I was younger, Prophecy was the only set that I completely collected. So I had one of every card. The avatars, all the commons. And when I found my collection, when I was a lot older, in 2015 or 2016, at my parents' house, I found my folder with my entire Prophecy collection in it. And I was like, here we go. How much is this going to be worth now? The answer is very, very, very little. Because Prophecy is one of the lowest value sets of all time that's appreciated in no value whatsoever. And the couple of cards that did have any amount of value in it have been reprinted by now anyway. So, Searing Wind is a card you could absolutely buy for yourself if you wanted to spend 9 mana to deal 10 damage to any target. I still think it's cool. Searing Wind. Okay. Hey, we're about halfway through the box. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of a trip down memory lane, having a look at some of these older cards. I hope you're doing well. Hope things are going good for you. Please do let me know if you enjoyed the video and if you'd like some more. Like I said, I've got half a box here that I could absolutely work my way through. I could get some cards to open. If you're enjoying the Magic content, please let me know. And either way, have a good night. And I'll see you soon. Bye.